Title: Twisted Threads. Jarrell had always thought of himself as a patient man. For 12 years, he and Michael shared a life built on the quiet rhythm of routine. Morning coffee brewed just the way she liked, evenings filled with his favorite old detective shows, and weekends spent doing mundane chores. Michael was steady, a rock in his otherwise unpredictable world. But she had one glaring flaw: her sister, Elise. Elise was Michael's opposite in every way. Where Michael was reserved, Elise was effervescent. She lit up every room she entered, drawing people into her orbit with a charm that seemed effortless. Jarrell would never admit it out loud, but his heart skipped a beat whenever she smiled at him. It started innocently enough. Elise invited Jarrell to a gallery opening when Michael had a headache. Then there was the movie night Michael didn't feel up to, and the hiking trip she dismissed as too much effort. Each time, Jarrell told himself it was harmless. After all, Elise was Michael's sister. What harm could there be in spending time with her? But Michael noticed. She noticed how Jarrell came home animated after being with Elise, a spark in his eyes that had long since dimmed when they were together. She noticed how he rarely suggested anything fun for the two of them, his excuses flimsy and his enthusiasm absent. And she noticed the way he laughed at Elise's jokes, a laugh that used to be hers. One evening, as Jarrell and Michael sat at the dinner table, the tension finally snapped. "Did you have fun with Elise today?" Michael asked, her voice calm but her eyes stormy. Jarrell paused mid-bite. "It was just a hike," he said, too quickly. "Just a hike," she echoed. "You know, I can't remember the last time you asked me to do something fun with you." "But Elise? She seems to have your full attention." "That's not fair, Michael," Jarrell protested. "You're always busy or tired, and you're always eager to fill that space with her," Michael shot back, her voice rising. "Be honest, Jarrell. Do you even see me anymore, or is she all you think about?" The room fell silent, the weight of the truth pressing down on them both. Jarrell couldn't find the words to deny it, and Michael didn't need him to. His silence spoke louder than any excuse he could muster. That night, Michael packed a bag. She wasn't sure where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stay. 12 years was a long time to love someone who couldn't love you back the way you deserved. As she closed the door behind her, Jarrell sat in the darkened living room, the sound of her departure echoing in his ears. For the first time, he wondered if the spark he chased with Elise was worth the flame he'd let burn out. Jarrell sat in the dim living room, his hands clasped tightly together. The faint scent of Michael's perfume still lingered in the air, a ghost of her presence. He stared at the half-empty wine glass on the coffee table, a silent witness to the unraveling of their lives. The emptiness of the house settled over him like a suffocating blanket. For 12 years, Michael had been his constant, her voice filling the spaces between the silence, her touch grounding him when life felt too chaotic. But now, there was only silence, a silence that accused him of every moment he'd chosen someone else over her. Unable to sit still, Jarrell grabbed his coat and stepped outside. The crisp night air bit at his face as he walked aimlessly through the neighborhood. His mind churned, replaying every argument, every missed opportunity to show Michael she mattered. He thought of Elise, the laughter they'd shared, the way her energy made him feel alive. But now, in the quiet of his thoughts, it felt hollow. He realized he had been chasing a feeling, not a person. Elise wasn't Michael, and she never could be. Jarrell had been drawn to the spark Elise provided, but he had taken for granted the steady flame Michael offered. And now that flame had gone out, leaving him in the dark. The next morning, Jarrell sat at the kitchen table, staring at his phone. Michael hadn't called, hadn't texted. He thought of reaching out, but what could he say? That he was sorry? That he'd made a mistake? Words felt like too little, too late. Days passed. Then weeks. Michael didn't return. Jarrell learned from a mutual friend that she had moved in with a cousin across town. She was taking yoga classes, something she'd mentioned wanting to try for years but never had the time for. She had started painting again, too. Her cousin posted a photo of one of her works online. It was a vibrant, abstract piece, bursting with color and life. Jarrell stared at it for a long time, wondering if the person Michael was becoming had always been there, just waiting to be set free. One evening, Jarrell received an unexpected knock at the door. When he opened it, Elise stood there, her bright smile faltering as she saw the weariness in his eyes. "Jarrell," she said softly. "I heard about Michael. I'm sorry." He stepped aside to let her in but hesitated. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice tinged with guilt and confusion. "I thought you might need someone to talk to," Elise replied, but her tone lacked its usual confidence. Jarrell shook his head. "I don't think that's a good idea. I need to figure things out, Elise. Alone." Her eyes widened slightly, but she nodded. "I understand," she said, stepping back. "Take care of yourself, Jarrell." As the door closed behind her, Jarrell felt a strange sense of clarity. For years, he had been caught between two women, not realizing the cost of his indecision. Now, he was left with the fallout, and it was his to bear alone. In the weeks that followed, Jarrell threw himself into reflection. He sought therapy, trying to untangle the reasons behind his choices and the pain he had caused. He started journaling, something Michael had always encouraged but he had dismissed as not his thing. Slowly, he began to rebuild, not a relationship, but himself. He didn't know if he would ever earn Michael's forgiveness, or if she would even want to hear from him again. But he hoped that, in time, he could become someone worthy of the love he had squandered. And somewhere, Michael was painting a new canvas, her life taking on colors and shapes that Jarrell would never again be part of. But she was at peace with that. For the first time in years, she was free.